This is John Zaninovich. Welcome to Move My Mass. You'll be hearing from great guests talk about balancing life and being fit. Welcome to the show, Gabe. Nice to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been trying to hook up for a while.
We have been. I appreciate your patience.
Yeah. So I'll just let everybody know who you are. Gabe Woodward,
Yep.
former Olympic swimmer, but we'll start before that. 2001, USC Trojan co-captain.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys kicked a little butt there.
We did.
That's what it looks like. 2004 Olympics.
Yep.
Bronze medal in the 4x100 relay.
Yep.
2007 Pan Am Games.
Correct.
Co-captain of that team, correct?
Yep.
And 2 medals.
Yep.
Silver in the relay and a bronze in the 100.
100 free, yeah.
100 free.
Yep.
So obviously very accomplished. Which
always want more, but
yeah,
sure.
always want more, which leads to, I know I've told this story to a million people that whenever I talk about you or, trying to have you on, but I have to tell the story again and how we met. I was so embarrassed that day. And I don't know if you remember it all, but I show up at Seven Oaks to go swimming.
Right.
And pool's full, which it rarely was, but all the lanes are taken. But I can see you're on your last lap. I don't know who you are. I just see, there's a guy that looks like he's coming to the end of his swim.
Right.
Slowing down at the end of the lap.
I look slow is what you're saying. Yeah.
No, not at all. But I walk up, and you looked up immediately. Hey, man, you want in the lane? I'm all wrapped up. I'm like, sure. And as I'm looking at you, though, I'm like, I recognize him from somewhere. And here I am, competitive swim background in water polo, and I recognize you, but I couldn't place it.
Yeah.
I know this guy. And I actually asked you, I'm like, hey, are you a cyclist here in town? Because at that last number of years, that's all I really do. A lot of is ride. And you were very nice. You just said, no, don't really cycle. Just swim. I'm like, man, you look really familiar again. And you
like to cycle.
Finally, you got out of the pool. I get in, and you're drying off. And I think I said, I'm like, I just can't place you. And you were so nice about it. You're like, well, maybe you recognize me from the Olympics. Yeah, that would be it. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. You were so nice about it. Yeah. You went on your way, and I went on my swim workout.
That's right.
But what's funny, and I don't know if you remember this either.
Yeah.
But you told me, like, hey, man, anytime you're in town and you want to swim, let's swim together. And I just showed up a few times. You had I think it was your swim school go on.
Yep.
Which is why you were probably there. And plus getting your workout in. But I come up and you're like, yeah, hey, I'll jump in the water with you. And I'm thinking, all right, this is all right. So I'm swimming and you're doing your thing. I wasn't paying attention to what you were swimming, but obviously freestyle or whatever. Yep. Whatever your workout was, it was. But you never lapped me. Nice. You would come up to lap me, and then you would either stop at the wall or you'd switch and do like some back kicks or something. And I'm laughing. Bubbles, I think, are coming out.
Yeah.
And I swim some more. You let me get ahead, and you start swimming again, and you're coming. You did this like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, that is pretty darn cool. Which I wouldn't have cared, But I'm like, this is a cool guy.
Well,
but
I was just probably getting tired. It's
I don't think so. No. But super cool way to meet. Glad you're on because I know you've got so much to be able to tell the younger kids that are coming into this sport because it's obviously a grueling sport as far as the work goes.
Yeah.
And so let's just get into it. What I'd like to know is what your training was like back in the day when you were heavy into it, your young days developing. And then, let's just go through that. And then we'll lead into kind of like how these younger kids are training nowadays and what you like about it. So what was it like back then?
Well, it's, I would start saying high school is when I really started to swim, my 8th grade year. And a lot of kids even today will swim when they're very young. But at the elite level, I think is probably what we're referring to. And I started my 8th grade year. I really started to train heavy and doing like the yardage, like we were briefly mentioning before we jumped on here. That the coaching at the time was, hey, pound out a ton of yards. You're going to be in great shape. And that led all the way through my high school. And it really treated me okay. I would go 3 mornings a week in high school at 5 a.m. I'd swim from 5 to 6:15, 6:30, and then 2 hours in the afternoon. And we would do about 4,000 to 5,000 in the morning yards, and then we would do about 7,000 to 8,000 in the evening. And that was, I think, 9 practices a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday morning, and then Monday through Friday evening. And so it was hard, but it got me strong, got me in shape.
Right,
I mean, I wasn't lifting weights, but it just got me physically in endurance. I started swimming the mile my freshman year, but at the end of my freshman year, I also swam the 50 free, and I went a lot faster than 50 free. Well, I'm going to cut the mile out of that equation, but kept swimming the 500 free.
I bet that broke your heart.
Yeah, I remember. It was a meet in Arizona, and I swam the mile, and then like 30 minutes later was the 50 free, and I actually swam really fast, and I surprised my coach. And I swam much faster. I think he didn't know because I'd only been swimming about 6-9 months year round. I'd done the rec swimming here in Bakersfield all growing up in Kern County. That's what I've had my kids do as well, but hadn't done the year round thing. I remember some kids from Texas had moved to Bakersfield. One of them was my age and one of them was 2 years younger. We were in the end of our 8th grade year. And I remember thinking like, man, these guys go to practice, not just, they go 4 days a week and sometimes 6 days a week to practice. I'm like, man, that's pretty intense,
Yeah.
And which really wasn't that much. And they're, four practices a week. So that really motivated me. Like, I want to beat these guys. I want to be as good as them. And so that was pretty motivating. So we swam a ton of yardage through high school. And then I was recruited to train to USC, to Stanford, Texas, Auburn. I knew nothing about swimming. So this was like, before the internet.
You went to Shafter?
No, I went to Stockdale High.
Oh, Stockdale High.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Southwest. And so, the coaching scene here was decent, but I wasn't looking on the internet. I wasn't, I was reading Swimming World magazine. There was a magazine, and I'd be ranked in the top 16 half the time. My local area would forget to send my time in, but I knew where I ranked. Like, hey man, I'd be 11th in the 50 free or the 100 free, even though I didn't send my time in but it was pre-internet, so to speak. I just didn't know a lot about the coaches out there on the scene. So the USC swim coach, guy named Mark Schubert, was at the time like a 4-time Olympic head coach. He had started Mission Viejo Nadadores back in the 70s, and about half the Olympic swim team in the 1970s was from Mission Viejo. I mean, there was a lot of kids on the Olympic team that were swimmers from Mission Viejo, Mark Schubert. Well, he's the head Olympic coach. He's recruited me. His assistant coach was a up-and-coming sprint coach, and he actually was already a very solid swim coach. And this was 1997 when I was 96, 97 when I was a junior in high school, and then graduated my senior year in 97 from Stockdale. And he was recruiting me heavily and wanted me to come train at USC. But come to find out, USC was a very distance-oriented program. Again, a lot more yardage. So
I never thought about that. I'm sure different programs probably had like sprint-based or
100%.
distance-based. And
so think of a baseball player, I remember, so when I was at USC, a guy named Mark Pryor, he's the pitching coach for the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. He came to USC. A guy named Barry Zito, and if you remember that name, big left-handed pitcher for the Oakland A's. Yeah. So these became both friends. And, you could think whether it's David Carr, Carson Palmer, a couple guys. I was friends with Carson at USC. They'd played on a baseball team together in Fresno, of all things, kind of funny. But having a good quarterback coach, not just a good football coach, or in this case at USC for baseball, they had one of the best pitching coaches in the United States. Now, USC's baseball team won the national championship my freshman year, but other than that, they were strong the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But their pitching coach was legit. And so they were throwing out pitchers. Well, for USC, our distance program by this head coach, he would just pound out yardage. And really, honestly, I'd almost say any sport, choose your sport, soccer, cycling, as you were saying. I got a cousin actually who's a cycler. Anything, if you do it enough hours a day, you're going to be in great shape doing it.
Correct.
Does that mean you're going to be able to run on a soccer field back and forth as quickly as you need to? It's a different type of endurance than just running a marathon. And I remember thinking that my freshman or sophomore year at USC, like, man, I could go for a 4-mile run, and I am not a runner. And I would run a pretty decent time. And I was like, man, I'm tired, but if I push it really hard, I'll be tired, but I'm running fast. Mm-hmm. And, but I don't need to run 4 miles. I need to swim like 1 lap in the pool, a 50 meter or 100 meter. And
you need to swim
I'm not
for 20
getting
seconds. You need
20
to swim for
seconds or
extremely
48
fast.
seconds.
Right. Yeah.
And it's taken me 51 seconds right now, and I need to go 49 or 48.
Yeah.
And so it was really almost training my muscles wrong. So even towards the end, so I graduated USC, always thought I could make the Olympic team. And it was 2001. I had gone to Olympic trials in 2000. And I remember standing up behind the blocks. We'd gone to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs like month before to really, get up there. And you think, if you want to be an endurance athlete, going up and training at altitude is good. Your body gets, more oxygen, less good. Oxygen. You get less oxygen. So then you come down and you get more again. So it's good. Well, when you're a sprinter, like I hold my breath, for the 50 free. So I don't need the altitude training. It doesn't really do a lot for me. And so it's kind of interesting just to see. I came down. I'll never forget being in Indianapolis for the 50 free, the 100 free, getting ready to swim. And I'm a junior in college, and I'm yawning behind the blocks. I'm just kind of like tired, exhausted still. And I'm going, man, like this is, this is not only does it not really give me a lot of confidence, I'm like, I'm exhausted. And I'd been swimming. Our coach in college was hey, we're going to pound you, and trust me, you're going to drop a lot of time at the end of the season. And I'm like, man,
I need to pound you, taper, and you're going to be fast.
I'm like, I need to drop a lot of time just to be where my competitors are. These guys are swimming fast in season, training hard. It's almost like sharpening a really sharp pencil versus sharpening a dull pencil. My coach was like dulling you out kind of type of thing. And dude, I got to get super sharp just to be where they already are.
Yeah.
I got to get so much more. And so it was kind of interesting. So I actually graduated from USC. I had an extra semester, and I took that semester off. I took a half, the fall semester. And during that time, the assistant coach at USC, when I came in as a freshman in college, he had recruited me, a guy named Mike Bottom. Right when I came in, I never swam for him. He went up and took the head coaching job at Cal Berkeley 2 weeks before I entered USC as a freshman.
Oh, okay.
2 years later, or a year and a half, I was 97 when I entered my freshman year. In 2000, two of his athletes tied to win the gold medal, Anthony Irvin and Gary Hall, in the 50 free. That was for the United States, and they both trained with him. And he had told me and recruited me, like, man, this can be you. We can get you here. Yeah. Well, he did much less yardage. So I graduated my senior year at USC.
Okay, when you say much less,
yes.
What's the
so like me doing 7,000 to 8,000 meters a day a practice twice a day at USC, 10 practices a week. I went down to probably doing 4,000 to 5,000 yards a day, sometimes meters, and probably 7 practices a week. So quite a bit less.
A lot less.
A lot less.
Right.
And then I dropped a half a second in my 50 free.
Which is incredible.
Which is a lot, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Training less hard, dropping time. Imagine how many people you could tell, like, hey, if you wouldn't have trained as hard, you'd be way faster. Can you imagine that? I mean, it's like, whoa.
I can completely imagine it. But you're training less long, but was the intensity a lot more?
No? I wouldn't say it was more. I guess in some ways it is, because you're not as dull, you're not as tired. So yes, you are swimming faster even in the pool, but it's because you're not doing as many yards. But when you're doing lots of yards, you're trying as hard as you can.
Right.
So definitely more fast twitch stuff, more speed oriented things, explosive things. And so anyways, it just showed me, it gave me confidence, like, okay, I can do this. So then I went back down to USC for the fall, and took my classes, and the plan was to go up to Cal Berkeley to train. And I was graduating USC, and move my mass. It's kind of interesting. The Lord really started to work on my heart. I'm graduating college. I didn't take too many classes on how to be a good husband or a good father. Now I have a good dad. My parents love each other. I got 2 brothers. I'm the middle of 3 as well. And but I was really kind of, I have to give it to the Lord to say, like, the Lord was really just calling me. So I was going to this church. I went there every Sunday and called up this little Christian school in Santa Clarita called the Masters University. And they teach at like the Jewish synagogues. They're professors, even though it's a Christian school, because they know the Hebrew and the Greek. And I'm like, all right, I like these people. They're like telling me the Bible. Like I want to know, like,
Yeah.
Is what I'm doing right or like, or wrong is studying this Bible or,
Right,
like, is
right.
that? So I ended up going there, stopped swimming. Well, I mean, I'd go like once a week, maybe to the local club in Santa Clarita. And the coach was excited. He's like, "Hey, man, you could train to make the next Olympic team maybe here. Try to do it." I'm like, yeah. But I was the only college kid there, and so ended up meeting my wife, what would become my wife, getting married within a year. And I remember, though, just after I'd been there about 3 weeks, the coach at Cal Berkeley called me because I was supposed to go up there and train with them. And that summer, we went to Croatia, actually, and I stayed home because we had a silver medalist on the Croatian swim team in the last Olympics who swam at Cal Berkeley also. And it was called the World Sprint Team. There was 10 guys, all between the ages of 21 and 30, 4 of them Olympic medalists, all of them except for me, Olympians, or maybe there was 2 of us, and but very successful group, and they were going to Croatia for the summer. There's a pool on the beach, with a nice, bar at the end of the pool and stuff. And I was sitting here thinking like, man, I'm just taking my Bible classes here. And I'm envisioning like, this is not going to be quite the scene that I was going to, that I'm looking for. I just started dating a girl that I think I'm going to get, I'd like to get married to. And so I ended up staying home, but I hadn't thought of that. It's kind of funny, the background of that. I mean, I'm sure it's beautiful. I can't wait to go to Croatia. I haven't been there yet. But so all that, I stayed home from going up to train with that coach, and that coach was very successful. At the end of the summer, I still swam very well, swimming just by myself a little bit. But then got married to my wife and was working, doing investment stuff. Got fired from my job, my first job, and I was going to go back because you have to take a test, and I hadn't passed the test. And I remember thinking, okay, do I want to go back? I know I can pass this test. Or it's 1 year to the Olympics. And there's this team down in Orange County where they train even less than those guys up at Cal Berkeley. And they train literally, it's about, in total, about 25% of the yardage of the USC team. I would train 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 1 practice a day, and it was about 4,000 yards of practice. Okay. Instead of 10 practices a week, 7,000 to 8,000 yards of practice. Right. And I started to swim fast just immediately.
And this is how long after school, you said?
About a year and a half.
So about a year and a half after college. Yeah. Okay. So again, this is not the normal trajectory to the Olympics.
No. Yeah. Most people are doing it, whether it's in college. Now it's getting more. There's more kids coming out a little bit after because there's some money in the sport. I wasn't making any money. I was I told my wife when we first got married, all right, well, if we're going to move down to the train for the Olympics, if you want to work for 1 year, then we can start trying to have kids, and I will. I'll figure it out whether we'll be on the swim team, the Olympic team, or not. I'll figure it out after that. She said, okay. She knew nothing about swimming. Otherwise, she would have said, there's no way you're going to make the Olympic team. She just believed in me. She wasn't a swimmer. Yeah. She just like, well, I trust you if you think you can make it. And
let's go do this.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of my competitors obviously hadn't taken a break. I had taken like that year going to the Bible classes. I had swam, like I said, once a week. And, usually you're training for 4 years pretty intensely. Yeah, for sure. So anyways, it was fun to see how they train much shorter. Like you said, intensity-wise, the intensity level's higher in some ways, just because you're more rested. Yeah. So that's what we did. That's how we got there. Yeah.
That's I've had multiple athletes on here, and none of their stories have been the typical or what you would think. You know, I guess there is no typical.
Right. Maybe that's what you start to find out.
You think everything is 4 years of college.
Yep. Right.
Transition to pro or Olympics or whatever. Yep. No, there's usually a curve in there, which is, I think, great inspiration for the kid that is thinking that that's the way it has to be. Yeah. Like, okay, I have to get recruited to the best college.
Right.
And then put my 4 years in, and then there better be that, whatever that ticket is, it better be there. No, you know what? It's not always going to be there right away.
Exactly.
Which is a great thing to know.
It really is. And it gives me, I feel like I've learned more as far as just seeing with my own kids. I could have pushed them hard. All of us parents are trying the hardest we can, right? And I didn't want to be the parent to like make my kids do the sports and stuff. I was telling my daughter this morning, I said, all right, you got 1 year. She's a junior, going to be a senior, going into senior year this next year. And I've just never pushed her. I'm like, you know what? I got 1 year left to push you. We're going to do this. Why?
And she's a swimmer, or what?
She's a swim.
Yeah,
Yep. She plays a little bit. She just played volleyball this last year a little bit. Their team won the Santa Clarita Christian School, won the state volleyball championship, Division 5 or whatnot. So it was good, but it was really fun for her. She was more on the cheer side because it was her first year playing, but she got in there and played and had a great time, had a wonderful time. But I was watching this morning on the swimming. I'm like, man, Reese, your stroke looks awesome. Like, I want you to get in and work out because I almost feel like, man, I should have pushed you a little bit. But, they got to want it too. And her personality is not hungry.
Yeah.
They have, but what I will say, I have seen plenty of parents, and you can't remember as kids, like, did you really want it at first, or your parents just taking you out there because you got two brothers and, hey, we're all playing soccer this year. And then you kind of get into it and you make your friends, and a year or two later, you're like in it, and you like it. And I've seen a number of kids actually kind of, the first 6 months or a year, maybe they're complaining a little bit, but then, 18 months later, they're like, dude, I love this. Why? Because they're having some success and they're seeing that.
I know that's what it was for me. You get that taste of success.
Yes.
You're like, oh, I want more of that.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that felt really good.
Yeah, that's nice.
And also at the other end, I hated losing.
Correct.
I was still a bad loser.
Yes.
I was really bad when I was young.
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling either.
Correct.
So you don't want that,
so if I'm
and you want
this,
that. So you're going to work hard for the good feeling.
No, that's definitely. So, looking at that, just seeing, even like I said, with my own kid, trying to see how you get them out there to teach good technique, teach in whatever the sport it might be. And these days, more than ever, there's so much data out there that you can see who the coaches are, who focus. Hey, if you're gifted at pitching, or if you're gifted at certain things, that you could gear it more. Hey, maybe we send our kid over here. Maybe it's not the best, university or high school overall, but this guy is going to help. He's a great wide receivers coach.
Yeah.
And if you're a wide receiver or whatever, like, man, that's, so there's just a lot more knowledge out there.
And, I've never thought about that. Like, when I think sports in general, football, baseball, swimming, whatever, I'm like, okay, like swimming, for instance, Texas always comes to mind.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah. Cal now also the last few years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, you're swimming the mile or you're swimming the 50.
Big difference.
Okay, yeah, you're in the water and you're swimming, but those are two different sports.
Yes.
I mean,
big time.
And yeah, I would never think to tell a younger kid, hey, when you're out looking for a school, maybe find the coach that. Yeah, I'm not giving that advice because I'm not. But I'm just saying seems like it's obviously something to think about.
Well, yeah, and I even think more than ever you're seeing different teams. I know in the swimming, you for sure are just about, I don't know, maybe it's been 10 years now, but NC State is a school that was not any good for maybe ever. I don't know. And then all of a sudden they kind of jumped on the scene with some really fast swims. And there's a lot more kind of one-off schools, not Stanford, Cal, USC. Used to be UCLA years ago when they had a program. Auburn, Texas, I can't think of Indiana years and years ago, not so much anymore. But those 7 teams were kind of the top in the NC2A. They'd kind of rotate around. We're 4th and 5th each of my years at USC at the NC2A division level. And so, you had all these teams the same. Now it's getting more diverse. And some of these other small schools, Missouri might be in the top 10 or something. Like, who's Missouri? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're starting.
This team will just pop out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's kind of exciting, and maybe it's because they get focused on one area. The sprints is often because that's score the most points, so it's a little easier. Or breaststroke or fly. They'll have 2 or 3 people. So, I do think seeing that. I didn't know that going into college. I just went because you get the good Olympic coach, must be pretty good.
Right. Why wouldn't you think it?
He never had any sprinters. We'll say that. He was a Olympic coach, but he was a distance coach. He just pounded you out. So having a marathon runner versus having Usain Bolt. You have Usain Bolt out there running marathon practices. He ain't winning a gold medal.
That's right.
Because he's not training right.
Right.
And so trying to look at that to see, so it is interesting. And, I know you had mentioned before, like how people are doing today. They're doing it even more that way. You see the pictures in the dugouts. It's just getting more and more technical, more and more sophisticated. Yeah. How do you pitch, not to this team, how do you pitch to this guy on his second strike or third strike, or
Right.
what is his tendency?
Yeah.
Swimming, you're not going against a competitor like that, but it's like, okay, how did your streamline look? You know, how did your pull off the turn or off this, like, really detailed?
I know.
Change your stroke in the middle or in the end where you're going to do a few different things.
I know.
It's really starts.
I feel really old because I am now, but knowing what practice was like when I was young versus watching these guys and girls swim now, they're just so much better. I mean, not just faster, but better.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can be not as good, but be faster just because of the skills they've acquired versus me. Like, they put us in the, all right, you're going to swim
8 laps for warm up and 10 laps. Now they're going to say, hey, do 3 dolphin kicks, right? When you dive in.
Right.
Don't take a breath of the first one. Right. You weren't allowed to.
That was not,
you weren't underwater. You just came up and swam.
Yeah. The second you hit the water, you're back up and swimming.
Some of the things, even in the last 10 years, that they're starting to do, dolphin kick and breaststroke that you can do. You can only do one of them, but it was actually after the 2004 Olympics where that became the American guy was against the Japanese guy. And they said the Japanese guy, who was the reigning gold medalist, did a dolphin kick, and it was a big controversy. And right after that year, they said you can do 1 dolphin kick off the wall. You know, things that you just start to see, and
it changes the speed a lot.
It does. It changes, and then the suits that came in and came out, and but definitely the training, like across the board, has come down in yardage. It has come down, and people are getting much more specific. Instead of just go out and run for 2 hours a day, and then you'll go run the 100-yard dash or the 800 or the mile.
What got exciting for me was, you know, did my thing forever and a day ago. But then my girlfriend's daughters got into swimming.
Yep.
I was so excited to hear about their practices. I was just like, oh my gosh, I get to hear, you know?
Yeah.
And they would describe their practice. And in my head, I'm like, what? That's not you guys are in, what? I don't even know if you guys use the term about hell week. Like you guys should be in, these are 2-a-days times. What's going on here? You only swam twice a day. But then go watch them. They're fast.
They're fast.
Like, what in the world is going on here? And then Rory Began, I had him on here. I think you know Rory Began.
Yep.
Incredibly fast swimmer. And talking to him about workouts too. Same thing. He'd describe his workouts, which, I mean, obviously he swims hard and works out hard.
Yep.
But I'm like, my gosh, they're so much smarter now. Like, obviously so much smarter.
Yeah.
Because not only is he, like, there's a good group and number of guys on the team that are fast.
Correct.
Versus in my old days, there were a couple of us fast and then a pretty good drop off.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, and it depends on each team and how, but you're exactly right. When you see the coaching and some of the styles, how they bring all these guys up, how they bring them, you know.
And like I said, so they're swimming smarter technique.
Correct.
Versus us. I have a horrible, I'm just getting myself through the water.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Technique, and then how to train your body to, like, I just need to swim for 20 seconds or 40 something seconds in the 100 or whatever it might be. How do I train that? I don't need to overtrain where I could swim a fast 500 because my 500 is not that fast. I remember my freshman year at USC, I went and swam, and I think I got the 5th or 6th fastest time in the 500 free in my very first meet. And I was an okay 500 freestyler, but I went 4:38, which was 5 seconds faster, 4 or 5 seconds than my fastest time in high school.
Right.
And I'm like, I just went a best time by 4 seconds, 6 weeks into training, because he was just pounding the crap out of me. I mean, the whole team. And I was getting in great shape. I worked hard. But I remember my 50 free was like a second slower than my fastest time. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm on your A relay.
And that's a big, like,
that's a lot in the 50.
Yeah.
To be a second slower.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching the Cal Berkeley times come up, or the Stanford times, or the Texas times. I'm like, hey, they're still swimming on their speed. Now, my 500 just dropped time, but I don't want to be a 500 guy. Maybe my coach secretly, that's what he was trying to do, was making me into a 500 guy. And I could understand that. I'm not like, 6'6" and, super big, but I'm like, man, I'm not going to train the distance group. I'm going to be 200 yards and down. And so it just, as these athletes, whether it's football, any of these sports, they're just getting more specific training.
They are.
And it's not looked at as negative. I would say 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe even whatever, 30, 40, whatever, as years ago when we were training, hey, if you're not like willing to go out there and like do all this stuff, swim 7,000, 8,000 meters, then you're not tough or you're not this, that.
Totally. That's what it was all about back then.
Yeah. Like, hey, come on, quit,
you're not a real
quit being a
swimmer.
baby.
Yeah.
Whatever sport. Like, hey, you need to go run. Well, what if the running another 3 miles, like that's not going to help. I remember we had, so when I was training down in Orange County when I made the 2004 Olympics, we had Matt Leinert was training with us as a weight. He was from Orange County, and his weight coach was our weight coach. We had a couple of different NFL linemen, and then we had a couple of Major League Baseball players. We all trained together. We all did the exact same stuff, and it was interesting. But this was speed training. And he says, listen, whether you're exploding off the blocks or here's this lineman, you're exploding up and you're holding some other guy about the same strength as you for 3 seconds. That's about it. And then you got to do that about 50 times a game for 50 plays, whatever, as an offensive lineman. And he had him, I'll never forget, he had him take like a 15, 20-pound weight tied to a rope on this bar and just roll it up as fast as he could and then unroll it. We would have to do that. That was one of the stations 5 times. So you're rolling this thing up. Man, your forearms are burning. He could have a 12-year-old girl who came in who'd been training with him who would burn right past these guys. It was the funniest thing. He's like, come on, man. It's just interesting. It was interesting to see because that weight coach was really starting to show us even how just speed really matters. Hey, you're a quarterback on the football team. Ready, set, hike. You got to move your feet real quick and get rid of this ball. With swimming, we're doing a repetitive move, or baseball. Swimming, we're a little bit more endurance than any of those things as far as like there's no stopping right there. It's 45 seconds of race. But just training to have endurance at sprinting or endurance at sprints or explosive movements versus just go out there and swim for 10 minutes. We're going to do that 30 seconds rest and do it again and do it hard. Hey, you're going to swim 20 seconds or 10 seconds even as fast as you can. Like sprint as fast as you can.
Get your muscles used to doing that. 5
seconds rest, do it again.
Yeah.
10 seconds rest, do it again.
Yeah.
And so and it's not negative to get out and you're still tired, but 2 hours later, you're not as tired as when you just did 8,000 meters and, so they're doing far less yards. So towards the end of my career, or even a lot of the kids today, they'll do 3,000 to 4,000 yards, 3,000 to 4,000 yards of practice instead of 7,000 to 8,000.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy.
Well, you have to think. It's like, especially if you're the 100 or the 50, it's like, how many yards do you have to have behind you to swim 50 fast?
To swim 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Not much.
No.
I mean, really. So it will be interesting 10 years from now to see where they're doing it.
No, we're swimming 1,500 yards a day.
Yes. Really.
Maybe.
1,500 instead of just a 50. You're swimming like 20 times the length of your race. Like, well, that seems like it should be plenty. Right. Even at 1,500, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're a 100 freestyler, do you need to do 15 times? Does the miler do 15 miles in a day?
Right.
And it's not quite the same, but you start to just makes you think.
Well, who's the current 50 world record holder? I know his name, but I'm drawing a blank.
Cielo, is he the 50? No. It's Caleb Dressel.
Yes.
Does he have the 50? I don't know if he has the 50. Maybe he does.
I think. Sure. Well, it's Caleb I'm thinking about.
Okay, Caleb Dressel. Yeah.
To watch him swim.
Yeah.
And you see him swim the 50.
Yep.
You're like, how did he get across the pool that fast?
Dude, he's a beast.
Yes.
He's 6'2". I'm 6'2". He's 6'2", 6'3", and he is jacked.
Totally.
He's not.
But it's just, how much faster can these guys get?
Yeah. Well,
when does it start?
I think they can keep getting faster. I mean, I guess that's what history has shown us. That's what we probably thought for 50 years.
I was like,
how much?
Right. It's insane to watch them.
It is. It is really interesting.
Did you have any total shock moments like during the Olympics, like stepping on the pool deck with somebody and you're just like, holy, you have any that come to mind?
I mean, look, when I was getting ready for the prelim race, I come out, we're in the ready room. So there's 8 of us teams.
So this is the Olympics.
This is the Olympics, in Athens. And I'm on the team. I'm the leadoff. And our anchor is a guy named Gary Hall Jr., who had swam in 96. And so he has 10 medals. That was his
extremely fast.
Very fast. Yes. Yeah. So he would win the 50 free 2 days later. we were standing there in the ready room and on opening day and of the Olympics. And I just remember telling them, hey, we're in a huddle. And I'm like, guys, hey, we're at the Olympics. And they're like, yeah, we know. He'd been in 2 already. Yeah. I just want you to know that I know. And I watched you on TV 4 years ago. And now we're on the Olympics together, dude. Let's go have some fun.
Right.
And so, it was pretty fun. There was a guy, Popov, Alexander Popov from Russia. Yep. He had won in 96. And so got to meet and chat with him, and because he was a number of years older. That was his last Olympics. Mm-hmm. But Ian Thorpe was there. A lot of these guys that I had raced many times or a number of times. So no one really there. Got to meet some NBA athletes, which was fun. Got to meet some different athletes. Yeah. Some wrestlers.
Do you remember that swim pretty clearly?
Yeah, pretty decently. Yeah.
What? Yeah. So tell me. Where'd you mess up and where did it go right? I mean, I'm not saying anything went wrong, but
absolutely.
in your own head,
yeah.
Oh man, I missed that turn. Or was there any moment during that swim where you're like, holy shit? So my turn
was okay, and the race overall, I would give it like what was it say, like 6 or 7 out of 10. Like it was strong, but it wasn't my fastest. So I was about a half second slower. It was my fastest ever race in the morning at that time. And I hadn't raced in like a month since the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
And so it was almost, there's a little bit of like cobwebs. So I had swam the Olympic trials. I'd gone 50.5 in the morning. And then that night I'd gone 49.7, I think. And then the next night for the, now I'm trying to remember, for finals, I went 49.4 to make the Olympic team. Well, I went 49.9 lead off in the morning. We came back seated second, and I knew, like, I felt strongly they were going to pull me off the team. They pulled 3 of us off the team because they had Phelps, who they wanted to get a medal for the finals. And the guy that led off for me led off 2/10 slower than I did in the morning. He was the head coach's. This is why I kind of thought, oh, he's going to pull me off. The head coach, Eddie Reese from Texas, it was one of his swimmers. And he had a couple of them on there. And there's politics and everything. There's always politics in life. Gary Hall, they pulled off the relay as well to put Phelps on. And then my roommate, Jason Lezak, anchored the relay. And Jason's is still a good friend to this day. And he didn't have his best swim. He had a really rough swim. So we went from second to third. So Mike, the guy that took my place, went slower. Jason went slower. Phelps went the same time as Gary Hall.
Yeah.
And then Gary a day later wins the Olympic gold in the 50 free. So he had a little revenge for like the coaches. Like, come on, guys.
Right.
We could have done this. But anyways, it's my race, as I said, about a half second faster than I had ever swam in the morning. So I felt like I kind of got the cobwebs out. I just felt tight.
Yeah.
And I felt like I can do this. Like later tonight, I can go my fastest time ever by a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, a half second faster.
You felt it.
Yeah. I just felt like, okay, we can do this. I went and asked the coaches. I said, hey, can I go do a time trial to make the medley relay? So to be one of the fastest, my roommate Jason hadn't swam well, and they said no, they wouldn't let me. Politically, they're just like, no.
Yeah. Oh,
so it gets kind of hard because you're a month later, and that's why they take six swimmers, 6 100 freestylers, is you don't really know. You're all so close. Who's going to be the fastest a month later?
Yeah, on that day. Right.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know they took that many.
They take it for the relays. They take 6 swimmers for the freestyle relays, I should say.
Okay.
The medley relays, there's 2 for each. The 100, whoever swims the individual event. So they have some swim the prelims, some swim the finals to get, let's see. They try to do the best they can to get the fastest in the evening. But so it's also tough. You're sitting there watching and you're like, oh, man.
I know. I know. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Never made it to that level. That's got to be crazy too.
Yep. Just experience and to see.
Yeah.
It's like Disneyland, you like think it's going to be amazing. You get there and like the lines are so long.
Yeah.
And then churros are like $14.
You get to go on the intro ride, but you don't get to go on the full ride.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, all right, this was, but that's part of being a team. And hey, we still got a medal. We got it. And so that's good. But, made you want to do a little bit more.
Right. For sure.
Yep.
So, hey, any tips for the youngsters coming into this sport? Not youngsters, but high schoolers,
high school,
like,
college
hey, man,
kids. Yeah, focus on like we were saying, like we've discussed. Like, hey, there's a lot of data out there. You can get on YouTube and watch how these kids, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Don't be like 20 years ago. Just go swim for 2 hours. I tell my kids often, like I told my daughter this morning, like I'm excited for her because her technique looks so solid. I'm like, okay, now you got to do is get in shape. That's kind of the easy part almost. Technique can be easy on one hand because it's not super exerting to like.
And sometimes it's
technique.
Natural. Sometimes they just have that darn stroke where they go fast.
They just jump in and they have it.
And like, what?
Yeah. So that's what I would say. Is be prepared to work hard. I asked all the kids. There's some kids out there at the pool for our club practice this morning at 6 a.m. I said, "How many of you guys like getting up in the morning?" Oh man, I hate it. I said, "Oh, you better like learn to like it because swimmers get up early,
Especially those cold mornings."
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
What about nutrition? What was your nutrition like? Were you, you hear so many of these college athletes, I ate whatever the hell I wanted, and it was horrible. Yeah. Never thought about nutrition back then.
Yeah.
And then they pick up good nutrition later. What were you like?
I was like the college swimmer,
Yeah.
I had a sweet tooth. I leave practice at USC, and there was this Papa John's pizza place next to my apartment. I lived in downtown LA. In an apartment complex like 10 minutes away, and I'd call them and pick it up on the way. 2 liter thing of Coke and a large pepperoni pizza. I'd go home and eat about half of it, and like a couple times a week.
I had in the dorms, I had Domino's pizza coupons nailed right next to my door.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times a week I ate Domino's pizza after practice. Like,
I'd get just powdered sugar, big bag of donuts. I'd make myself a cake like once a week. I had a few roommates over the couple of years at SC that weren't swimmers, and they'd always be like, "Man, Gabe, what are you doing?" I remember
and you're probably 8% body fat, or you're completely nothing.
I'm sure, like you, one of the leaner swimmers. And at the Olympic, when we went to Athens, we flew to Athens, checked into the Olympic Village, and then the swim team, we flew off to Majorca, Spain, one of the islands there in the Mediterranean. Stayed in this beautiful hotel, and they had a buffet each night, and they have an ice cream. They have a couple things, ice cream, to make an ice cream sundae. And a lot of the coaches, especially for the girls, are a lot more like, no, you don't get to eat that.
Right.
My coach, I'm married. I'm 24 years old. I think I just turned 25, and went over, started scooping up myself some ice cream, and I'm like, I'm all right, man. I'll burn this off. And I don't want to change my diet now. I'm at the Olympics.
Well, I was going to ask, college, you had a horrible diet, nutrition. Mm-hmm. So that kept that.
You know what? It got better. Being married was helpful.
Okay.
Not living quite the college
life. But you never went
on
some crazy strict, like, really. I'm really going to dial this in.
I can't remember if I did a non-sugar thing for like a few weeks or something like that. I don't remember, but I have to ask my wife.
Nothing specific, though.
Nothing super big. Yeah. I ate a lot of calories. We'd go to Fat Burger the year I was training, and I'd get burger with the eggs and the bacon and everything on it. So I will say that's one of the things, advice to young athletes, swimmers, athletes, like, hey, look at those things. Like, look at how to eat healthy. The guys,
especially
today,
when a tenth or less than a hundredth of a second can be you're going or you're not.
In 2008, I missed the second Olympic team by 13 100ths. I dove in, my hands separated at the dive. So I worked full time.
So that's what I was talking. That kind of stuff I was talking. Like, you remember?
Oh yeah.
And nobody understands. I don't even understand it because I was never fast enough to know if my hand split at the start or not.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that you remember. Oh, yeah. Man, if I would have kept my hands together.
Therefore glided in the wall. It's a half a second, like easy. You dive in and your hands separate, like that slows you down. Therefore, I wasn't quite as far, and I was used to having a cadence, and I glided into my turn. It was a half a second without a doubt. In the Olympic trials finals, second Olympic team. And I went home to Bakersfield instead. Came here and watched it on the TV.
Yeah.
It's pretty anticlimactic. I had 2 kids. That was 4 years later. So I had 2 kids at the time, was working.
Right. Yeah.
All my competitors, they were just swimming. I know you were saying, how do athletes these days, how they train. A lot of them have more money these days. There's more access in swimming and things to money if you're going to get married or have kids. I was married with 2 kids. And so I had to go work. I had to go do something. So I would swim at lunchtime. Still swim faster than I ever did. I swam faster in 08 than I did in 04 by about half a second, and went 48.8 and like I said, miss the Olympic
Because they just
team.
kept getting faster.
Yeah, everyone keeps getting a little bit faster.
Yeah. So how was transition from that life to, all right, now we're going to go into the married working life?
Yeah.
Is that a tough transition for you? Or
you know what? It kind of happened at the same time, right after I got home from the Olympics. Found out the day I left for the Olympics, found out my wife was pregnant with our first child. So I knew going to Athens, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what I'm going to do here, make a living. So immediately went back, took that test and passed it. I'm like, all right, I'm not an idiot. I'm like, Lord, thank you. I'm really glad I flunked that test a year ago, because I would have never tried to make the Olympic team. And so you kind of look back and you see the Lord like work, and so anyways, I was very competitive and wanted to win. So I still wanted to in life, in business or whatnot. And so, in 08, I would almost say it's a little harder. 05, 6, 7, and 8, I was still, I took time off and I wasn't training a ton, and then I'd go back and training pretty intensely for a few months. And missing 08 was almost, I don't know if there was no transition. I already had my job, but it definitely was discouraging to come home and to not be in Beijing, to have missed it, because it wanted to be that close. It wasn't like, people didn't think I had a shot. They're like, man, you have not been training. You got 2 kids. You're working full time. Because some of them I'd work in investments and I took care of their finances too. What I mean? And they're playing video games or whatever, but then to almost make it. So, trying to figure out what you want to do is, not what other people want you to do, I think is important. And being an athlete is not going to, it can define part of who you are, but not everything, So for me, as I told you before, I met my wife in taking Bible classes. So understanding, who God is and what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to serve him. And all right, Lord, you closed this door when I flunked my test. So I'm going to look through other doors to see, all right, I guess I'll go try to swim. And to see well, that worked out. Okay, good. So even when something negative happens, all right, well, the end of your athletic career, okay, Lord, I guess you have me doing something else.
Right.
What else is there?
Yeah.
And so, there's been times, I'm sure, I know in both of our lives over the last, since we've ended our athletic careers, as far as only doing that you look at things that come to an end and you go, all right, let's see what else we have to do and how are we going to do well at it. And so I look at the things that I knew I was, okay, I'm ending my athletic career. I know the Lord wants me to be a husband because I'm married. I know he wants me to be a father because I have a kid, and I need to have a paycheck. So let me go figure out here what I'm going to do.
Right.
And what do I enjoy doing? So
what are you doing? We've talked about it before, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
So people know.
A few different things, actually. So my wife and I own a swim school where kids learn how to swim. I think I mentioned it to you before. I'm really doing investing. And that was an investment that went out of business. It was an investment that went bad. And the Lord kind of allowed us to come in and take over it. And we love kids. So we got over 1,000 kids out learning how to swim in our swim school. Quite a few high school and college kids that work for us, which are wonderful and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And my day job is a lot in investing. So stock market, and then also in private businesses. And so,
right.
Yeah, different things. The Boulevard here locally. And nothing else. I'm trying to think. I'm CEO of a land survey company, actually, of all things, based out of Boise, Idaho, and Bakersfield. And we're involved in a couple things in oil and gas, and
got a lot going on.
A lot of different, yeah. So,
how many days a week are you in the pool now?
Ooh, I'd love to be 4 to 5 days a week, and I'm going to say I'm in there a solid 1 day a week. So
that's a good
I would like
consistency.
That's right.
It's a solid,
consistently inconsistent. That's no. So was coaching a swim team, helped a little Christian school down in Valencia start a swim team, Masters University. They're an NAI division swim team, great team, and they are ranked top 20 in the country for NAI this last year, which is awesome. Stepped away from that, which has given me more time to hopefully exercise the last few months.
Yeah. Well, you're still extremely fit. How do you're doing
fatter
more
than I've ever been.
You're doing more.
I look in the mirror and I go, oh man. You know what? No, I do try to watch what I eat. Look, I try to exercise a little bit, but honestly, one of the honest things I'd say is I swam at nationals in 2010, and I had trained kind of hard for that, and that's now 12 years ago. And I kind of look back and go like, man, I was in really good shape. Why? Because I have not done that much stuff over the last 12 years, and I'm doing all right. Like I'm slowly getting worse. I bought my first tuxedo the other day for a wedding, and I'm like, maybe I should just buy one. That would help just make sure I don't grow anymore. I need to stop growing.
I have to stay in that thing.
That's
I have to get into it.
I need some accountability.
Yeah.
So anyways, but I still love swimming, still greatly enjoy it. And it's a wonderful sport. Stretches you out. You're clean.
Yeah, it feels good.
It's hot here in Bakersfield right now, and it feels good to jump in the pool. And so, yeah.
Well, how do people find you? On Instagram, Facebook? Where?
I'm on Facebook.
Your business? How do they find
Gabe
your
Woodward.
business?
Yeah, business. You can just Google me probably. Yeah, Woodward Diversified Capital is the name of our business. And but yeah, I'm on Facebook, not on Instagram. Bakersfield Swim Academy. We're on Instagram, I think. And
all right.
Yeah.
So well, thank you so much for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Great. Glad we could finally do it. I know we were trying for a little while.
Yeah,
As I hope you heard today, 4 kids and life, and keeps us busy, but it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll go out and go swimming together again.
For sure. Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks.